The day James Turner signed the papers on his 4-bedroom house in suburban Atlanta, he cried. Not from stress, not from fear, from pride. James was 41 years old. He had worked 20 years in logistics. He had saved carefully. He had done everything the American dream told him to do. The bigger house was the proof. It was the reward. It was the finish line he had been running toward since he was a kid, watching his parents struggle in a 2-bedroom apartment. James moved in on a Saturday in October. By the following April, he had drained most of what he had spent 15 years building. Not because of a medical emergency, not because he lost his job, because of a house. The house he bought to prove he had made it. The house that was supposed to be his greatest asset. The house that became the most expensive mistake of his life. James is not unusual. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the average American homeowner has dramatically less liquid wealth than they appear to have on paper. Their net worth looks strong on a spreadsheet. But almost all of it is locked inside walls they live in. And the bigger the house they bought, the deeper that trap runs. This episode is for James, and it is for everyone who has been told that upgrading your home is the smartest financial move you can make. It is not. I am Cindy. This channel exists to tell you the truth about money that the financial industry and the real estate industry would both prefer you never figure out. Subscribe right now if you are new here. Every single week, we bring you information that changes the way you think about building real wealth. And today, we're going to talk about the one purchase that destroys more American wealth than almost anything else. Let us start. Here is the thing nobody says out loud at the closing table. The moment you buy a bigger house, you do not just buy a building. You buy every single cost that comes attached to that building for as long as you own it. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, utilities, hoe fees, lawn care, pest control. The bigger the house, the bigger every single one of those numbers gets. And they never stop. A study published by the National Association of Realtors found that the average American homeowner spends between 1% and 4% of their home's value every single year on maintenance and repairs alone. On a $400,000 home, that is $4,000 to $16,000 every year. Just to keep the house from falling apart. Just to maintain what you already own. That number does not include your mortgage. That number does not include your property taxes. That number does not include your homeowner's insurance. That is just the cost of things breaking. Because things always break. The roof, the HVAC system, the water heater, the plumbing, the appliances, one after another, year after year, they break and you pay. And here is the number that should make you stop cold. According to the Urban Institute, the average American family that trades up from a modest home to a larger home increases their total monthly housing costs by 42%. Not their mortgage alone, their total housing burden. 42% more money leaving their household every single month going directly into a building instead of into investments that could actually grow. That is the trap James fell into. He went from a 2-bedroom home with a $1,500 monthly cost to a 4-bedroom home with a $2,200 monthly cost. The difference was $700 a month. $700 a month that used to go into his brokerage account. $700 a month that used to compound quietly every year. Gone, redirected into square footage he did not need and a guest bedroom nobody used. Over 20 years at an average stock market return of 7%, that $700 a month would have grown to over $400,000. $400,000. For a guest bedroom nobody used. Now here's where it gets worse. Most people buy a bigger house for reasons that have nothing to do with money. They buy it because their neighbors upgraded, they buy it because their parents owned a big house and they want to match that image. They buy it because their income went up and they feel like they deserve more space. They buy it because someone at work mentioned what neighborhood they lived in and they felt a quiet flush of embarrassment. Researchers at Emory University studying consumer behavior found that residential spending is one of the most socially influenced financial decisions a person makes. More than cars, more than vacations, more than clothing. People buy bigger homes primarily to signal status to people they know. Not because they need the space. Status. And here is what makes that devastating. The people you are trying to impress with your house are either not paying attention or they are doing the same thing to impress you. Meanwhile, both of you are quietly draining your retirement accounts to maintain the performance. Thomas Stanley, who wrote The Millionaire Next Door, spent decades studying how actual wealthy Americans build and keep wealth. His research found that the majority of genuinely wealthy Americans live in modest homes relative to their income. Not because they cannot afford more. Because they understand that a house is not an investment in the way most people think it is. Robert Shiller, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, published research showing that American home prices adjusted for inflation have grown at less than 1% per year on average over the last 100 years. Less than 1%. Meanwhile, the stock market has returned an inflation-adjusted average of roughly 7% annually over the same period. Your house is not making you rich. It is costing you the chance to get rich. Let me tell you what happened to James after April. The furnishings cost more than he expected. 4 bedrooms needed furniture. A bigger kitchen needed appliances. A larger yard needed equipment. Within 6 months of moving in, James had spent $40,000 beyond the down payment, just making the house livable and presentable. Money that came from the investment account he had built over 15 years. Then, the HVAC system failed. $14,000. Then, the roof showed damage from a storm inspection. $22,000. Then, his property taxes were reassessed upward. His insurance premium rose. His utility bills were 60% higher than the old house because there was simply more space to heat and cool. By the time James was 44, he had a beautiful home and almost nothing in savings outside of it. His house had equity on paper, but equity you cannot spend does not pay for your retirement. Equity you cannot access does not cover an emergency. Equity locked in walls does not compound. James was worth more on paper than ever before, and more financially vulnerable than he had been in 20 years. This is what the bigger house actually does. It does not make you wealthier. It makes you appear wealthier while quietly hollowing out every other part of your financial life. If you are still watching and you have not subscribed yet, please do it right now. What you are about to hear in the next few minutes is the part of this conversation that most real estate agents and mortgage brokers hope you never think about carefully. Here is the framework that changes everything. A house is a place to live. It has real emotional value. It has stability value. It has community value. But it is not a primary wealth-building vehicle. The people who build real wealth treat their home as a cost center and their investments as their wealth engine. Not the other way around. The 28% rule from traditional financial planning says your total housing cost should not exceed 28% of your gross monthly income. But here is what the industry does not emphasize. That rule is a ceiling, not a target. The families who build the most wealth typically keep housing costs significantly below that ceiling and redirect the difference into investments that actually compound. According to research from Vanguard, every dollar redirected from housing costs into a diversified investment portfolio during your working years has a compounding effect that dramatically outperforms the appreciation of residential real estate over any 20 to 30-year period. Not sometimes. Consistently. The practical translation is this. The family that buys the modest house and invests the difference does not just end up slightly better off. According to the research, they end up dramatically better off. Sometimes by a factor of 2 or 3 in total retirement wealth compared to the family that maxes out their housing budget at every income level. This is not an argument against homeownership. Owning a home can be a sound financial decision for many families depending on their market, their timeline, and their circumstances. This is specifically an argument against the reflexive upgrade, against the belief that more house automatically means more wealth, against the American cultural story that the size of your home is proof of your financial success. It is not proof of success. It is often proof of a trap. Here is how this ends for two families. The first family earns $110,000 a year. Every time their income grows, they buy a bigger house. They tell themselves they deserve it. They tell themselves real estate always goes up. They retire at 65 with a paid-off house worth $600,000 and $200,000 in retirement savings. They own an asset they cannot easily spend. They worry about money every month of their retirement. The second family earns the same income. They buy a modest house and stay. Every raise goes into their retirement accounts. Every bonus goes into index funds. They do not upgrade their home when their neighbors do. They retire at 65 with a paid-off modest house worth $250,000 and $1.2 million in retirement savings. They live comfortably. They sleep without fear. They leave something behind. Same income, same working years, completely different outcome. The only difference was a decision about square footage. The biggest house on your street is almost never owned by the wealthiest person on your street. Real wealth is quiet. It does not show up in the square footage of your kitchen. It shows up in the options you have when something goes wrong. It shows up in the freedom to say no. It shows up in a retirement account that does not require you to sell your home just to survive. James eventually figured this out. He is 53 now. He sold the Atlanta house and bought something smaller. He took the equity and invested it. He told me he feels like he got a decade of financial progress back. You do not have to wait until 53 to figure out what James learned. You are figuring it out right now. Share this with someone who is thinking about upgrading their home right now, not to talk them out of it, but to make sure they have run the real numbers before they sign anything. It could be the most important thing you send them this year. And subscribe, because next week we are going to talk about a financial trap that is even more invisible than this one. Most people never see it coming until it has already cost them everything. See you next week.